And so when that happens, that's a big signal that this conversation needs to end quickly, and use your skills. This is not about suggestions. It's about just letting folks know that what you had heard just isn't consistent. Sometimes, as has been said, the conversation needs to happen right then, not let a day pass, not let 2 days, not a week where it just festers. Sometimes, though, you are so upset by what you've seen or heard, or the individual is just not ready to hear, that you have to take a little bit of a time out. So I'm going to trust your judgment not only about having the conversation, about documenting it as well. Remember, this is about when is after you have thought about it, after you've had a chance to reflect. Put down in those documents, if you feel like you have to, that it's been sufficiently egregious that you really need a record of it, fine. But I don't document any cup of coffee conversations that I have with anybody, because I'm just coming as a good colleague. I'm not coming as the boss. I want to be able to hold up the mirror and not make it any more of a big deal than it is. Just thought you'd want to know. I'm your colleague. Some of you will have issues with that, and that's okay. I just ask you to wrestle with and consider that you don't have to write up everything. We're going to get to the point where you'll have data or evidence because the patient advocates wrote something down about me, because staff members have had multiple complaints about my behavior, and it shows a pattern. But it's not about gotcha. It's about being professional, right? Being caring. Being loving in a business-like kind of way. How do you document? No nasty grams. Just the facts. Joe Friday approach. Avoid adjectives. Keep it about the events, not the individual. Make it true. Imagine it projected on a courtroom wall. You know, these days, with the scanning technology, any note you write that is part of a discovered record can and probably will be projected on a courtroom wall, and lawyers will take their laser pointers and ask exactly what every word and term means. Just imagine it projected. Go right back to no nasty grams. But you all are leaders, you're bosses. So what if you are the boss? Can bosses ever share a cup of coffee? And you wear multiple hats. So this can be awkward. But I do want you to reflect that with rounding, you are trying to reduce some of that distance in hierarchy. With thank you notes, you are trying to signal that you're a human being. With setting goals that we all agree to, you are reducing the hierarchy to share what it is we're all aiming for, that everyone has bought into and agreed upon. So I do believe that bosses can share a cup of coffee with those who report to them, their direct reports. It means that you have to assert that you are coming as a colleague, but sometimes you have to be the boss. And I'm going to trust your judgment that when maybe on the second or third event, or it's particularly egregious by whatever standard you employ, and the good news is by and large you get to decide what's egregious in these circumstances. So for leaders, there's not just the regular cup of coffee, but this thing I've been referring to as a cup of espresso. Now the next rung up the ladder is the authority conversation. I think of that sometimes as the cup of bourbon. And then at the top of the pyramid, the disciplinary, I think of that as the cup of hemlock, but we won't go there. So the same principles apply. And I'm not going to practice this with you, but if you are the boss, you have the opportunity to use effectively the same principles about privacy, about making sure that there's respect, all that stuff. But you let them know that as your leader, as your supervisor, fill in the blank, I just want you to know that something was noticed, observed. And so I just have to ask, is this report factually true? And then Barry Friedman says, no, it's not true. And we get to have that conversation. I wasn't there. Got to wonder why this was reported. Sure, we'll never have to talk about anything like this again. You take good care. But then if they say, yeah, it was true, then you might remind them about the policy or the protocol briefly, because as has been pointed out several times, they already know it. Just let them know that their failure to observe it was noticed, and somebody cares enough to take them aside. But ask them directly, is this true? Because it just didn't sound like you, Jim. I know you to be a wonderful, you're appealing to my pride and my professionalism, and you get it. And so you just say, is that true? And then finally, if you choose to document this one, at least have the integrity to let me know that you're going to drop a note in your personal locked file, and that you fully expect that we'll never have to look at it again. But if we do, if a pattern develops, we'll deal with that then. But Jim, in your case, I'm confident that'll never happen. You see the appeal here? You're attempting to have it both ways. You're a boss, but you're kind and considerate because you are. You want to uphold the organizational standards, and you are. And you want to be a good boss. So let's move on. What if a pattern does appear to emerge? Dr. Cohn.
What happened?
Here.
A common scenario is this action happened that was reported, and the person says, yep, I did that, but I was doing it because I needed to do it for patient care, and that everybody was blocking me in some way. I couldn't get this, I couldn't get that, nobody was responding, and all I wanted to do was take care of that patient.
And I would add, because I'm the only one apparently who cares about quality around here. That is absolutely true. And we're understaffed, we're overworked. I have to do workarounds just to provide the halfway decent care for our patients. And my response is going to be, it's really challenging, the work that you do. And I appreciate you bringing that up. I have to tell you that there are a lot of other folks who do the same work, and I don't get complaints of this nature. I don't get reports of this nature. And so I just have to wonder, Dr. Cohn, why I got this report in this instance, because in fact I know your commitment to high quality patient care, blah, blah, blah. And I am really, really just surprised to get this report. Knew you'd want me to call it to your attention. And you know what? You're right. Sometimes there are systems issues that get in the way. I'm surprised I haven't gotten more reports about the system in this unit or whatever it is. But you know what? If there are systems issues, we need to address those, but that's a separate conversation. And what I heard in this report is that the behavior that you were said to exhibit and that you've now said actually was true just wasn't consistent with who we are. Now, if we need to fix the systems, again, that's another conversation, but we're here today to talk about your response to those circumstances in front of the staff and the patients. It's more appropriate to take those issues to the system owner, to the system leader, to whoever's responsible. And yeah, I know you've told me that you've done that 100 times, but now we've got to really take that seriously. And so I want to challenge you and me to make sure that those systems get fixed. Because we have to balance systems accountability with human accountability, right? Some of the work that we've done at Vanderbilt was written up in a joint commission book, and the title was Balancing Systems and Human Accountability in Healthcare. It's a huge challenge. And so please do not assume that I'm here to talk about the human factor only. We have to deal with systems, but every system has an owner. And every system has participants. So I really appreciate this comment a lot, because we have a distinguished high-risk specialty, subspecialty surgeon who dismissed all of the patient complaints and staff concerns because they're all system-related, was the assertion. Now, not all of them were, but that was the assertion. And after a couple of years of getting this kind of feedback, Dr. X finally said, you know what, I get it now. I am part of this system, and the things that are in it that impact me in a way that makes me crazy, I need to deal with the system and not just push it off. And so he began to make concerted efforts, recruited bosses of the system to assist and to observe. So another reason for rounding is to look at how the systems are working and how those systems are failing, to note the things that your team members are experiencing, the frustrations that aren't going to go away, and they're probably going to get greater. But instead of talking about the system, let's start talking with the system leaders. We don't have a trust committee meeting. We're self-insured for MedMed. And we have all the usual medical and nursing leaders sit in on the reviews of cases. We also have the CFO, who begins to see the impact of some of the decisions on actual care and its quality and its safety. So it's important that as good team members, we share with whoever has an impact on the system. So yes, sometimes the system has been a huge contributor, but we've got to separate the discussion about the system from my behavior that's been reported. So are there excuses, rationalizations? Are there actual systems issues that need to be fixed? You betcha. So you better be prepared to think about both.